When the Suzuki Vitara first came out in the late 80s, no one realized it yet, but it was quite ahead of its time. Now SUVs, small SUVs rather, are all the rage, and it seems like Suzuki, well, it knows a thing or two about making them since, well, they've been in the game longer than anybody else. This right here is the 2021 Suzuki Vitara GLX AllGrip. Now, it's currently the only Vitara that Suzuki Philippines is offering. So they're not Subaru, but it seems like they're going all in on all-wheel drive. The question is it a straight flush or a small pair before the flop? AutoDeal.com.ph can connect you to get the best quote from multiple dealerships near you. You can request and compare quotes from any dealership in the Philippines. Get the best deal with AutoDeal. Now, sitting inside the Vitara, it's actually pretty standard. There's nothing too exciting or trendy in here. It just basically means that you're not going to get tired of it when you're spending a lot of time inside this cabin. The standard look in here is broken up by this metallic trim with dots all over it. Trypophobes? Look away. I have to admit, I had to look that up. Other cool things in here include this beautiful analog clock that's found in the center of the dashboard. It's not exactly a Breitling in a Bentley, ain't it? But it's actually very darn cool. My bosses are gonna kill me for that one. Get it right, Caco! And the huge 10-inch infotainment, which has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It isn't the sharpest display out there, but the fact that it's bigger means it's easier to navigate through menus and your music much easier, a trade-off I'd gladly take. It's a great place to be in, even on long drives. The combination of the headliner color, size of the windows, and the panoramic sunroof makes lots of light come into the cabin, making it feel much more spacious and not at all claustrophobic. The trade-off is that it can get quite hot in here when parked out in the sun. And even when you're rolling, the sun is still shining through, the heat will definitely creep in. But it's nothing that a little tinting can't fix. The seats are great too. They're wrapped in somewhat of a combination of leather and Alcantara-like material. It's nice and soft to the touch, and it definitely keeps you in place. The rear isn't the most ideal place to be in this cabin though. There are no charging points, air vents, or even a center armrest, which also means no cup holders, just bottle holders on the door, though they are quite big ones, so larger bottles are an easy fit. The headroom isn't great either. See, Jack drove a friend around who's about my height, but his Mohawk wouldn't fit. Mohawk, good grief. But seriously speaking though, taller passengers might have to slouch to fit in here, and that's mainly due to the mechanisms of the sunroof making the ceiling a little too low in here. The overall exterior of the Vitara has features that make it look burlier and much more macho than your regular crossover. Arguably, there is a lot of going on in the front, with different textures such as chrome and black plastic, a false skid plate, and different kinds of shapes and cuts like the chrome slats on the grille. Well, it really isn't a grille because, well, it goes nowhere. Ventilation is handled with the openings down here. Suzuki did something similar with their quirky little espresso, and if you want to check out our full review on the tiny hatchback, click on the link on the upper right of the screen. You've got LED headlamps and LED DRLs found down below. Unfortunately, you've got halogen fogs and halogen high beams, which in the grand scheme of things isn't so bad, because it's not as if you're going to be constantly driving with your high beams on, trying to blind the people on the other side of the road so that they get into an accident. I mean, you guys aren't really those idiots that drive with high beams on all the damn time, right? Sorry, I need a moment. God, I hate those people. What's unique about these headlamps are the blue accents inside them, and I don't really understand the practical use of them other than to just really look pretty. Although it does look somewhat awkward on someone's rear view mirror, like it was an afterthought, just to spice up the front clip. The unique clamshell look of the hood is a signature of the Vitara, similar to what you find in the first generation. And I like it a lot, as it fits the overall look of the front end. On the side, you get more bits and bobs to up the Vitara's rugged look. There's black cladding on the fenders, chrome on the trim on the bottom, and a strong character line running from the front up to the rear fender to give it a little more edge. The wheels are 17s and have discs behind them up front and on the rear. You're looking at 185 millimeters of ground clearance here, so definitely good for going off the beaten path. But despite being all-wheel drive, don't expect it to be crawling out of ruts and boulders though. If you're looking into something that can ride out of the dealership, then check out a review of the very capable but not as practical Jimny. Adding 10,000 pesos from the base price gives you this two-tone paint scheme, which is okay for more of that city slicker look. But a solid color does give it a little more character to me. And this galactic gray, well, I prefer over the bright red and gold the two-tone cars come in. At the rear, you've got your spoiler, a third lamp found up on top, solid rear lights, which are actually very, very big, and a reverse light that is so bright and massive that even a dentist would be impressed. Plus, you've got this faux skid plate found underneath. When you open her up, you are looking at 375 liters of space. That's with the seats up. When you fold them down, you're looking at over 700 liters of space. And then, of course, there's this false bottom that can hold itself up. That's actually pretty cool. You're not Jay-Z, and this is not a Rolls Royce, but you could store some champagne in there. Just a thought. And then, of course, you've got cubby holes on either side. Hey! It's the GoPro. We could have used this, man. Damn it. That's where that was. One of the Vitara's strength in the segment is actually its steering. Now, while in other crossovers, it's super light, almost to a point where it's numb, some might argue. Now, while a lot of people actually do prefer that, there's actually nothing wrong with having a little weight in your hands. Mind you, that does also very well to communicate what's happening underneath you. And not just on the road, mind you, but really off it too. The four-wheel drive system here is not like the one found in the Jimny, where you can switch between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive modes. See, in the auto mode, it prioritizes power to be delivered to the front wheels. Great for fuel economy, only pushing power on the rear when the front starts to lose traction. So if you drive with a lead foot, the system can actually give you additional stability, especially in wet conditions. The snow mode is for when you're driving on loose surfaces like sand, gravel, or snow, I guess. It keeps the torque high on all fours to optimize traction, and the traction control intervenes more to keep the wheels from spinning. Lock mode is especially useful when you're caught in a sticky or rather slippery situation. It optimizes the four-wheel drive system to get you out when stuck in surfaces like sand or mud. In sport mode, it lessens the interference of the stability system to give a more predictable drive when carving through curves, and it tells the transmission to keep engine revs higher up for more consistent power delivery. But if you want to take control, there are paddles in here, and although this is a crossover, the transmission is quite responsive for what it is. The response of the accelerator is also improved for a more spirited on-road driving. The engine is plenty good, but it's not exactly the strongest in the segment. Up front, you've got a 1.6-liter four-cylinder naturally aspirated engine mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission that produces 115 horses and 156 newton-meters of torque. This is not a Pikes Peak hill climb monster, and it's not about being the fastest. What this is strong at, though, is fuel economy. You'd think this being four-wheel drive now, it would impact the fuel economy. But it fared well, clocking in at 8 kilometers per liter inside the traffic of the city. That's very similar to what we got in the previous 4x2 variant. So it's easy to see that Suzuki's AllGrip Auto Mode is at work. The ride and comfort here in the city roads is quite good. It doesn't float over bumps and blemishes, but rather takes it in without causing ruckus in the cabin. It doesn't feel bouncy in here, nor is it stiff. It's a bit firm, let's put it that way, but in a good way. See, just like in the steering, it offers more feel of what's going on underneath you, and I mean this in a positive way. And then some other crossovers actually have more roll than others, especially the smaller ones compared to the larger ones, which are more planted. But in here, a smaller crossover body roll isn't very significant at all. You feel very planted. Now, being in here for longer distances is also not a hassle at all. See, the driving position is one of the things that stood out, as the steering wheel adjusts telescopically, and although it's not powered, the seats are also very supportive. Another feature that helps you out on longer stints in the Vitara is cruise. Though we don't get the adaptive cruise like Vitaras in other markets, cruise control is always a welcome feature. It doesn't just reduce fatigue, but also helps keep your speed in check, especially on expressways with lower speed limits like NAIA X. Isolation from the noise outside is relatively decent, not spectacular. You do hear a little bit of the engine, do hear a little bit of the road noise, wind noise. That's not a problem whatsoever. What is and can be a problem is that there are some squeaks and bumps and rattles inside the cabin itself that you may need to get used to. Earlier, I did make mention that the sunroof does provide for a lot of light to come in so that you don't feel so claustrophobic inside the automobile. But like I said, a lot of light means a lot of heat. And really, well, to be honest with you, you can live without it, but it's pretty, man. It's pretty. You can't forgo the pretty. Now, aside from the all-wheel drive system, the biggest difference from the previous iteration is its price, where before it was very competitive. Now though, yeah, the ante is kinda higher than you'd actually expect. The 2021 Suzuki Vitara GLX AllGrip comes in at 1,458,000 Philippine pesos. Now, it does have its drawbacks, yes, but it's a well-rounded car with good tech and somewhat of a leg up on the competition thanks to its safety and capability brought to you by its all-wheel drive system. So, it's not exactly a royal flush, but this pair of deuces won't let you leave the table empty-handed.